Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 275. Without any delay, start explanation. He had also cultivated the body secret technique. At the same time, he possessed the powerful Golden Dragon King bloodline. The effects of Aruhang's forceful heartbeat sounds were reduced to its lowest level. Aruhang moved quickly and threw his right arm brazenly. Currently, his body did not enlarge further, but his entire person gave off a unique aura. He felt like a highly compressed super-fixed soul ammunition. Back then, Tang Wulin was nearly hit by a rank 9 fixed soul ammunition. It was Gu who saved him. The feeling of being blasted by the ammunition was no different than what he felt now. Amidst the outburst of the Blue Emperor Golden Dragon roars, he stabbed out with his Golden Dragon Spear. It was the Blue Emperor Golden Dragon soars to the heaven. Compared to before, it had the enhancement of Devour the World. However, the Blue Emperor Dragon soars to the heaven this time was clearly more powerful. The spear's consciousness burst forth. The glaring whitish golden spear's gleam was like a giant dragon's fang. The giant dragon's body was covered in a bluish golden color, and it devoured Aruhang in an instant. At this very moment, Aruhang's eyes suddenly bulged. Some flowing lights leaked out from the edge of his eyes. Thump, thump. Amidst the energetic heartbeat sounds, Aruhang abruptly opened his mouth. He held at Tang Wulin's Golden Dragon soars to the heaven. Roar? Surrounded by the tremendous sound waves of the roar, the intense shockwave had amazingly weakened the Golden Dragon soars to the heavens energy by a third. The Strength King was seen to move swiftly. He then rammed into the Blue Emperor Dragon soars to the heaven with his body. Boom! Tang Wulin was sent flying from the impact. His Dragon Moon battle armor gave off loud, cringing squeaks after the Blue Emperor Dragon soars to the heaven disappeared. If Aruhang was akin to a volcano before this, currently he was like the sun falling from the skies. The scorching bloodline shockwave made Tang Wulin felt his insides were on fire. It seemed as if the blood essence within him was vaporized by his opponent's blood essence. His dragon cores pulsing intensified dramatically. Only by facing him would one know how terrifying Aruhang could be when he was at his most powerful. The Jade King did not lose for no reason. No wonder the Jade King didn't even have a chance to hit back. To think that elder disciple brother was so domineering. The thought disappeared from Tang Wulin's mind as quickly as it had appeared. This time, Aruhang did not give him an opportunity to catch his breath. His body moved swiftly and he was already before Tang Wulin. He made a fist with his right hand and brazenly hurled a punch directly at Tang Wulin's chest. It was a combination of absolute agility and strength. There were no skills involved. It was just pure suppression. At the crucial moment, Tang Wulin did not hesitate in the slightest. He instantly activated his Golden Dragon Rage domain. A golden halo spread out from his body. At the same time, his Golden Dragon Spear disappeared from his hands. He swung his right hand brazenly. A giant Blue Emperor Nirvana Divine Claw appeared in midair, brazenly unleashed. Amidst the intense explosion sound, Tang Wulin had combined his three great skills of the Blue Silver Grasp, the Golden Dragon Dreadclaw, and the Golden Dragon Nirvana Divine Claw. In addition, the formidable attack was enhanced with Devour the World, but it was still not enough to parry Aruhang's punch. His punch was so ferocious and domineering that it seemed invincible. Despite Tang Wulin's efforts, the punch still appeared before his chest. Tang Wulin could only raise his Golden Dragon Spear before him in defense as he was hit by the punch. His entire person immediately flew backward like a cannonball. He crashed heavily onto the protective barrier on the other side. In contrast, there were only a few scratch marks on Aruhang's body made by Tang Wulin's Blue Emperor Nirvana Divine Claw. Tang Wulin's body bounced back. Aruhang dashed forward again to appear before Tang Wulin in all his dominance. He hurled another punch at him. Tang Wulin lifted his Golden Dragon Spear with his left hand. His body flickered as he moved sideways. In terms of agility, he was not inferior compared to Aruhang when he relied on his dragon wings of his Golden Dragon body. The Blue Emperor Dragon wags its tail. He kicked his foot, and his dragon tail swung forward accompanied by a dragon's roar. Ruhang did not even attempt to dodge. The punch he hurled was switched to a downward strike. Bam! Tang Wulin's right foot kicked Ruhang's body mercilessly. He felt as if he had kicked a mountain. Ruhang grunted. At the same time, his fist landed on Tang Wulin's raised left arm. Crack! Amidst the crisp sound of bones breaking, Tang Wulin's body fell from the skies. Just when his body was about to crash to the ground, Ruhang suddenly appeared beside him. With his indomitable will, he gained momentum. He erupted once again with terrifying strength. He brought both his fists together and brazenly struck Tang Wulin's body. Had his fists hit, Tang Wulin would hardly stand a chance. At this moment, a beam of golden light suddenly appeared under Tang Wulin. It supported Tang Wulin from below. It made him bounce to the side swiftly. He managed to evade Ruhang's attack under a seemingly impossible situation. At the same time, a large figure descended from the skies and crashed directly onto Ruhang, pinning him to the ground. The Spirit Soul Gold Song, the Spirit Soul Overlord Dragon. His two great spirit souls attacked at the same time with barely a hair's breadth between their strikes. Tang Wulin's body rolled far away before he stabilized himself. He extended his dragon wings behind him. The left side of his Dragon Moon battle armor was greatly damaged. His left arm was bent at an awkward angle. It was completely fractured. It was unimaginable just how powerful Ruhang's punch was. He did not wait for Tang Wulin to catch his breath. The Overlord Dragon, which was more than 70 meters in height, emerged from the ground. Shortly after, it whizzed to the side. The sight of the 70-meter-tall colossal body flying sideways was pretty amusing. However, no one was in the mood to laugh. What terrifying strength it had to send even the Overlord Dragon flying. The golden, red light was like a sun rising from the ground. It charged toward Tang Wulin again, followed by a powerful heartbeat sound which filled the entire stadium. Tang Wulin was flustered. He flapped his wings with increased speed. However, due to his injured left arm, his body was not as stable as before. In the blink of an eye, Ruhang had almost caught up with him. He stabbed out with his golden dragon spear in reflex. However, at this moment, his golden dragon spear did not have any spear's gleam remaining. Only the spear itself was stabbed forth. Regardless of how it looked, it did not seem possible to ward off Ruhang's punch. Ruhang grabbed at his golden dragon spear's tip with his bare left hand, while his right hand went for Tang Wulin's back. Oh no! I'm done. Most of the audience closed their eyes instinctively. With Ruhang's terrifying strength, they reckoned that Tang Wulin's body would be crushed to pieces by his attack. The Strength King was truly powerful. The strength he displayed in this round was even greater than in his earlier match with the Jade King. Back then, the Jade King was unable to fight back. Currently, although the Golden Dragon King fought back, his efforts seemed to be in vain under the terrifying strength. How was it possible for a human's strength to reach such terrifying levels? Before the soul scream, Yi was nodding his head softly. He mumbled to himself, "It's already impressive for Tang Wulin to hold on until now. Even for an 8-ringed soul Dolor, not many are able to withstand this innate secret technique of the Third Awakening, the Sun Body." Ruhang attacked with his Sun Prince's body, and that would be enough to shock any title Dolor. I didn't expect him to achieve another breakthrough in such a short amount of time. I think he'll be able to attain the rank of a title Dolor in another year at the most. At least there'll be a successor for the position of the Body Sect's master. Mu Chen's brows were knitted together. Regardless of the circumstances, Tang Wulin was his most outstanding disciple. When he saw that Tang Wulin was about to lose, although it was not an embarrassment for Tang Wulin to lose to such an opponent, it was still an unpleasant situation for himself. However, there seemed to be something else written in Jinhua's eyes. It was puzzlement. Flustered? Since when did this young man show signs of being flustered? He had always been steady as a rock and shown his maturity. All these expressions appeared within a short period of time. In the next instant, Ruhang had already grabbed the golden dragon spear's tip. Time seemed to have stood still at that moment. Aruhang's right punch suddenly stopped dead in its tracks. Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear turned golden red in an instant. At this moment, Tang Wulin turned around. Then, he bent his body in a peculiar position as he arched his back and met Aruhang's right punch with his left shoulder. Bam! The Dragon Moon battle armor on Tang Wulin's left shoulder instantly shattered. The audience could see his left shoulder split open as a mist of blood sprayed out. However, those who observed closely at this instant could see that he had regained his calm composure. His shattered left shoulder seemed to have no effect on him. Aruhang had a different experience. The golden dragon spear in his left hand felt like a vortex. It devoured his vigorous Sun Prince's blood essence power furiously. His right punch was also affected, and his attack weakened. Nevertheless, he felt it was sufficient to defeat his opponent. Something unexpected happened after his punch landed on Tang Wulin's shoulder. Although Tang Wulin's left shoulder was shattered, he felt a hollow sensation from Tang Wulin as if his whole body was hollow inside. A large portion of the energy from his punch vanished. It seemed to have been devoured by Tang Wulin. The golden dragon spear in Tang Wulin's hand burst forth with a brilliant light at this moment. The golden red color which devoured his blood essence power suddenly intensified. A terrifying vibrating force burst forth with a series of explosions. Aruhang realized with fright that he was unable to maintain his grip on the spear's tip even with his strength. It seemed that when Tang Wulin's left shoulder shattered, his golden dragon spear had stabbed Aruhang's chest amidst the vibration although it was gripped by Aruhang. Poof! The sharp spear's tip penetrated into Aruhang's body. Aruhang shouted and the golden red glow on his body burst forth as it attempted to push out the golden dragon spear. However, the suction force of the golden dragon spear intensified instantly. The energy kept flowing out of his body and surged into Tang Wulin's at the same time. A golden figure pounced from behind and wrapped itself around his body. It opened its mouth and bit the back of Aruhang's neck. The gold song. Aruhang and Tang Wulin came into contact. They were only separated by the length of the golden dragon spear. Who would have expected Tang Wulin to turn the tides of the battle when he was under such an overwhelming disadvantage? His golden dragon spear had truly penetrated Aruhang's body. The golden dragon blast? Tang Wulin's gaze burned bright. Aruhang retracted his right punch. He wanted to throw another punch, but he was affected by the gold song. He tried to break free with all his might. Under his terrifying Sun Prince's strength, Goldsong's body was torn into two. However, it was then that Tang Wulin's golden dragon blast reached its peak. Poof! The golden dragon spear was forcibly pushed into Aruhang's chest. It stabbed into his massive heart. The golden dragon spear immediately turned red. Aruhang's terrifying strength began to shrink like a deflating balloon. Roar! A sonorous dragon's roar came from Tang Wulin's mouth. The blue-silver emperor vine surged wildly and twisted around Aruhang's body. Aruhang's vigorous blood essence was being devoured by the golden dragon spear into Tang Wulin's body. It was stunning. The blood essence power was overwhelming. It was so formidable that Tang Wulin could not even control it. It surged directly against the golden dragon king seal within him. Tang Wulin's dragon core within his body voraciously absorbed vast amounts of the bloodline energy. It was pumping fiercely and his own bloodline aura grew wildly. Every blood vessel bulged under his skin, and they were golden red. His meridians began to split open and blood mist sprayed all over him. The 11th golden dragon king seal inside Tang Wulin had loosened as cracks began to appear on it. The golden dragon king's essence, filled with a ferocious and diabolical air, began to ooze out like strands of silk. He flapped his golden dragon wings behind him wildly. They barely lifted his body as it fell together with Aruhang's from the skies and they crashed heavily onto the ground. The golden dragon blast was unleashed to its fullest extent. Under the enhancement of his blue-silver emperor, clusters of halos erupted. Little disciple brother, Aruhang suddenly opened his mouth to speak. His voice was slightly strained. Tang Wulin's mind cleared. You lied to me. Ruheng's tone was slightly peculiar, although it did not sound like he was in much pain. You lied. Tang Wulin never expected his disciple brother to utter such words. Yes. He had lied to Ruheng. Since the beginning of the match, Ruheng had fallen into Tang Wulin's trap. How could Tang Wulin not see that he was no match for Ruheng if it was purely a contest of strength? The body sect's innate secret technique had once placed the sect at the pinnacle of the continent's Soul Master's realm. He was not an opponent who could be easily dealt with. Ruheng could be described as the product of 100-year accumulation by the entire body sect. In fact, from the very beginning, Tang Wulin had been scheming against his disciple brother. He had not wasted his time on Demon Island. In truth, he had been concealing his golden dragon spear. After exchanging blows with the dragon-slaying saber, his golden dragon spear had become progressively sharper. The razor-sharp object was his golden dragon spear body. Tang Wulin had been concealing this point. Up until the final moment, when Ruheng thought he was about to achieve victory, Tang Wulin made use of his left arm and shoulder to seize the opportunity. When he was attacked on the left shoulder, he unleashed the sixth move of the Golden Dragon 9 moves, the Golden Dragon Bites, which deflected most of the attack's force. The Golden Dragon Blast and the Golden Dragon Spear were unleashed with a burst at this moment. He relied on his Divine Tool's devouring ability and created a winning opportunity. In the end, Ruheng had underestimated the Golden Dragon Spear's sharpness. Although his innate secret technique was overbearing, it was unable to stop the sharp Golden Dragon Spear. There was no gleam on Tang Wulin's Golden Dragon Spear. It was not that he could not unleash it. He withheld it on purpose. The manifested spear's gleam's sharpness was inferior to the actual spear. Only the actual spear could reveal its sharpness after being polished. At the same time, he misled his opponent. On Demon Island, attitude was not the only thing Tang Wulin learned. He learned to use everything which was applicable on the battlefield. Before the match began, he had observed his disciple brother beforehand. The body sect's innate secret technique was very difficult to cultivate. In addition, his disciple brother's cultivation base was truly far above his. He was absolutely certain that in cultivation base alone, he was no match for his disciple brother. If he wanted to defeat Ruheng, he would have to search for an opportune moment to fully unleash his strength. Ruheng's background came up in his mind. His disciple brother had cultivated in the body sect since he was young. He seldom came into contact with the outside world. Even if he had ample experience in combat, he might not necessarily understand human emotions. Since the beginning of the match, Tang Wulin had actually withheld 30% of his strength. Otherwise, he could actually surpass Ruheng in terms of agility. It was precisely this that made Ruheng fall into Tang Wulin's trap subsequently. In the end, Tang Wulin seized the opportunity to use the Golden Dragon Spear's sharpness and ability to devour to land a sure-kill attack and turn his defeat into a victory. In turn, Tang Wulin also paid a high price. He only had this opportunity by intentionally breaking his own left arm. If he did not have a strong will, it would not be easy for him to defeat Ruheng. He had to maintain his peak attacking power while sustaining his broken left arm. This was why when Ruheng lost the match, he had called him a liar. The instant upset left the entire stadium silent. Nobody would have expected that the Golden Dragon King had the ability to turn his defeat into a victory against all odds. The silence went on for a few seconds before the cheers burst out like a geyser. Golden Dragon King! Golden Dragon King! Golden Dragon King! The deafening cheers seemed capable of overturning the entire competition stage. There were many who supported Tang Wulin before this. Due to Tang Wulin being at a disadvantage, they felt like the vanquished all this while. At this very moment, the inhibition could finally be unleashed. For a long time, the cheers encircled Tang Wulin. He stood straight. Although he had lost an arm and half of his body was covered in blood, he raised his golden dragon spear with pride. On the screen, the giant word champion and the illusory shadow of a crown that appeared above Tang Wulin's head all indicated that he was the strongest contestant in this year's competition. I am the final champion of the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge Soul Master Battles. Pavilion Master, teachers, companions, and also the deceased teachers and students of Shrek Academy, did all of you see that? I've won. I'm the champion. This victory doesn't belong to me but to our Shrek Academy. At that moment, Tang Wulin's heart was pumping and his blood boiling intensely as he raised the golden dragon spear, shimmering with golden light, high up in the air. Some of the emotions that he suppressed in his heart before were bursting forth like an oil blowout. I'll walk down this path no matter how difficult it is now, and in the future for sure, Shrek shall be revived in the end thanks to my efforts and those of my companions. I've won for Shrek's glory. There was no way he could tell how many people were excited and how many of them were speechless in front of the screen. Meanwhile, they were mesmerized by this man covered in golden light. He was the champion. He was number 33, the Golden Dragon King. Blood 1 and also the Blood Gods of the Blood God Battalion were all watching this competition in the Blood God Battalion's hall. The former Blood 9 had already widened his mouth in surprise at present. He suddenly discovered that he had gone from being completely confident to slightly fearful. He wondered when the absolute surety he had for defeating Tang Wulin in their next confrontation had vanished without a trace. Could he have won if it was he fighting against that Strength King? The answer was as clear as day. Then, how was he going to defeat Tang Wulin who had bested the Strength King? Blood 1's gaze was so deep that no one could understand his state of mind, while Blood 3 and Blood 5, who also originated from Shrek Academy, had clenched their fists tightly. He had won. He was worthy of being the leader of the current generation's Shrek 7 monsters after all. Shrek Academy's future still lived. Mu Yi's eyes appeared to be in a bit of a daze as he also sat before a screen. In his eyes, the figure with the broken arm was unyielding and proud. He deserved to be proud of his victory. As Mu Chen and Zhenhua had mentioned, he was a person skilled in creating miracles, and he had just managed to make another once again. Little junior disciple brother is awesome. A voice called out from the next room. A man with a tall, muscular build walked out from the room moodily. He was precisely the man who had just completed the battle with Tang Wulin earlier, the Strength King A Ruhang. Yes, he had been here all along. He had participated in this competition under Mu Yi's guidance the whole time, so he had a rather good understanding of Tang Wulin. What a waste that even Mu Yi did not understand Tang Wulin as well as he once had. A Ruhang had a well-proportioned appearance. He was not as handsome as Tang Wulin, but he still had thick brows and big eyes filled with masculinity. He stood over there with his massive frame as he naturally exuded virtuous morality. Mu Yi turned his head around and looked toward a Ruhang as he casually said, "Your loss was not unfair. Compared to Wulin, you have much less experience." A Ruhang touched his bald head and chuckled. "It's fine. A loss is just a loss. Anyway, I didn't lose to an outsider. Teacher, I've achieved peace of mind." Mu Yi's lips twitched once. "What do you mean by peace of mind? What do you mean by peace of mind? Who's talking about that now?" His disciple excelled at all fields, but a Ruhang had an overly carefree attitude. The body sect had been handed down to him, but he was truly not as formidable as Tang Wulin. Whether it was his intelligence or steadiness, he was still far behind Tang Wulin. However, there were already too many burdens on Tang Wulin's shoulders. Mu Yi was afraid that he could not bear any more. A Ruhang sniggered. "Teacher, it feels incredible fighting little junior disciple brother. The rest of the opponents are just like they're made of clay. They shatter before I've even touched them. Little junior disciple brother is tough. Can I look for him and spend every day sparring him in the future? I can definitely improve faster." The most important cultivation method of the body sect's innate secret technique was to continuously temper one's body. This process was best achieved through battles. Yet, even for someone like Mu Yi, it was already extremely difficult for him to temper this disciple of his. After all, it required him to confront strength with strength. He had an idea. Yes, they were fellow disciple brothers, so it was time for them to meet on a friendly basis. Go ahead and prepare dinner, Mu Yi." A voice came from behind Mu Yi which stiffened his expression at once. "In war, there's victory and sometimes loss. It doesn't matter. Zhenhua patted his shoulder. Mu Yi's lips twitched. He spoke furiously. What do you mean by there's victory and sometimes a loss in war? He's also my disciple, all right? He's also mine, okay? Zhenhua sneered. I see. You mentioned that Ruhan was going to win before. How about that? Go and make us dinner. It's all right. You've lost. I? Rumble, rumble. Snow slid off the mountains like raging storms and waves. At once, the surrounding mountains had a chain reaction. Snowflakes fluttered in the air while the cold draft bit into one's bones. On the other hand, the avalanche happened because of the deafening cheering voices. The entire Blood God army turned into a sea of joy at the very moment Tang Wulin became the final champion. Guarding the abyssal passage, they were the loneliest army and they were dauntless. They protected the location quietly, keeping watch over the entire continent and even all of mankind as well as all the living creatures on the Doluor continent. Their contribution was immeasurable. Their daily lives were extremely dull. Now, this was finally the moment for the Blood God army to shine. Yes, the final champion of the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge belonged to the Blood God army. This was glory for the entire army. Almost every soldier that did not have guard duty in the abyssal passage walked out of the barracks with their hands raised high up in the air as they cheered. They were kept low for too long for no one knew about them, despite their obvious position as the most powerful army corps in the entire Federation. This time, they were the champions and the glory was finally theirs. They watched as Tang Wulin retracted the golden dragon spear in his hand and pounded his fist heavily on his chest at the final moment after becoming champion. He saluted in the style of the Blood God army. Yes, it was the Blood God army's military salute that only belonged to the Blood Gods. Even if they were the only ones who could tell, it was enough. The soldiers were boiling with a righteous order which completely dissipated the coldness of the entire barracks. The entire army was even more shocked and excited than they were during the outburst of life tide. Champion, champion, champion. The cheering voices went from one point to a series of connected voices within only a few seconds. Despite the avalanche that was occurring in the mountains that surrounded them, there was no way to conceal the soldiers' excitement. Jiang Wuyue howled, Jiang Qiyue cried aloud, while Long Yushue shrieked. There were some who were acquainted with Tang Wulin and some that were not. Ma Shan was pounding his chest strenuously as if it was he who became the final champion. Ling Wuyue smiled. She raised her arms and pointed all 10 of her fingers to the sky. She was still waiting for Tang Wulin to defeat the opponent in the following match, the final mecha battle. Perhaps, he was not the most skilled at operating a mecha, but his combined abilities were definitely the most powerful and she believed in them. She felt that Tang Wulin could perhaps become a doubly crowned king to the Blood God army. Blood God army had remained inconspicuous for too long. On the other hand, this surge of emotion had undoubtedly bonded the soldiers of the entire army corps. At this exact moment, the Blood God army's regimental commander, Bright Mirror Doluor Zhong Huanyun, wished to cry. He even wished to give himself a tight slap ferociously. Once, the opportunity was right in front of him, but he had given up so easily. At that point, he had had the chance to rope in this young man as his successor. Who else could be more suitable? Yet the young man was seized by the old fellow Cao Deji first. It was his deepest regret. Even so, he was filled with pride, despite the disappointment. UB** starts from the army headquarters. Look, the final champion belongs to our Blood God army, but not your senior officers. The Blood God army is the most powerful of all army corps, even if we are not under the direct command of the military. Possibly, the only place that was calm and quiet in the Blood God army at that moment was Tang Wulin's living quarters. His blood was racing with the sound of people cheering as well, but he still chose to log out from the battle network and return to his room. His gains from today's battle were much greater than when he fought against the Gale Saber demon Sima Jinkai. He experienced firsthand just how powerful the body sect's innate secret technique was. He could even confirm that if he was capable of successfully cultivating the innate secret technique himself, he would not face many problems during the breakthrough of the next 2 layers of the Golden Dragon King's seal. In any case, this secret technique was perhaps the most effective method of refining one's body in the world. He would need to give it a try regardless. At this point, he dialed Mu Yi's soul communicator. Do-do, do-do, do-do. No one picked up after the communicator rang a few times. What is teacher doing? Why isn't he picking up the communicator? Uncertainty crept into Tang Wulin's heart. Meanwhile, the communicator was finally answered. What's up? Mu Yi's weak voice was heard. Teacher, asked Tang Wulin, attempting to find out Mu Yi's intentions. You've won. Congratulations, Mu Yi replied dully. That doesn't sound like congratulations. It seems like teacher is not too happy about this. Tang Wulin had his doubts. Could it be that this was due to him defeating his senior disciple? Teacher, what are you doing? Preparing dinner. His weak voice turned into rage. Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment. Teacher, you all right? After that moment of venting, Mu Yi became more like his normal self. I'm fine. I'm making dinner for 2 middle-aged B***stards and 1 good-for-nothing glutton. The glutton told me that it felt incredible fighting you and he would look for you later. Glutton? Looking for me? Incredible? Is senior disciple brother with you? Said Tang Wulin in astonishment. If you're calling to tell me the good news, you can hang up now. I'm busy here, said Mu Yi in an unpleasant tone. Tang Wulin answered, No, I didn't call to tell you the good news. I think that senior disciple brother's innate secret technique is extremely powerful. Do you think that as your junior disciple, I can attempt to cultivate that as well? Upon hearing Tang Wulin's words, Mu Yi needed a moment, but he soon reacted to the situation. Astonished, he answered, You wish to cultivate the innate secret technique? Tang Wulin asked, Can I? Mu Yi was taken aback before he had a change of mood. So, do you understand how difficult it is to cultivate the innate secret technique? Tang Wulin spoke, I've heard about that from you before. Everything I know about it came from you. Look, my bloodline is exceptionally gifted and my physical strength is not bad. Even though I'm no match for senior disciple brother, I'm much stronger than ordinary soul masters. I think that perhaps I stand a chance of cultivating the innate secret technique, right? Mu Yi raised his eyebrows ever so slightly and considered for a moment. He said, This is actually a good decision. So you think that our body sect's innate secret technique is very powerful as well, huh? Of course. If I had not resorted to trickery, how could I possibly have triumphed over senior disciple brother? Our body sect's innate secret technique is, without a doubt, the #1 divine method to refine one's body in the world. Of course I wish to try it out if I have the opportunity. Well said. If you're able to successfully cultivate the innate secret technique, everything else will be nothing to you. You're in the Blood God Army, right? That's great. I'll send your senior disciple brother to meet you and also pass on the cultivation method of the innate secret technique to you. However, approach it with caution and don't try it recklessly. If you can't cultivate the first level successfully, then don't force it. The damage of the blowback from failing the innate secret technique is very troublesome. However, given your body's strength, you could genuinely give it a try. We'll talk about the rest when you're done with the first level. Sure. Thank you, teacher. Tang Wulin was overjoyed. He was surprised that Mu Yi had actually permitted him to cultivate the innate secret technique, as this was the fundamental skill for the body sect. In truth, he was actually more of a Tang sect disciple. He had acknowledged having a teacher in the body sect but had not formally joined the sect. Mu Yi hung up the communicator. His gloomy expression had already turned into excitement. He muttered to himself, That's great. The boy came to me on his own initiative seeking permission to cultivate the innate secret technique. This is proof of its power. Even though it's a little late for cultivation, perhaps he still stands a chance with his physical capabilities. The problem is that the first level requires condensing the blood essence core, which is quite difficult. I'm afraid it's still too tasking even with a strong body. I'll have Ruhan bring over some heaven and earth treasures for him later. Give it a try then. If he succeeds, then my body sect will truly rocket to the top of the world in one shot. If he's cultivating the fundamental method, he can't deny that he's a disciple of my body sect, right? Hehehehe. Amorous and heartless Dolor, wait and see. Let's see who this little monster leans to by then, shall we? Hehe. Muyi, what are you sniggering about? Are you done making dinner? Fu. After getting his teacher's permission, Tang Wulin was in a great mood. According to teacher's words, the innate secret technique is divided into levels. The first level should be the most important. Was senior disciple brother coming over? That was awesome because Ma Shan and Jiang Wuyue were already no longer that suitable as his sparring partners anymore. His senior disciple brother had such powerful abilities, and he was also physically gifted like Tang Wulin, so it was just right for him. His heart immediately filled with hope and anticipation thinking about Ruhang's arrival. He believed that his cultivation speed could be further elevated with such an amazing person as his training partner, and he could express everything that he had learned to the best of his abilities. His thought process was almost exactly the same as Ruhang's. A faint smile emerged on Tang Wulin's face. He interlocked his fingers in front of his chest. With every glimmer of light in his eyes, the air warped ever so slightly as he entered a meditative state. Ruhang's intense heartbeat and the change of his blood essence fluctuation during the battle inspired Tang Wulin's cultivation. Under such immense stress, he could even feel that he had managed to pick up some tricks for his cultivation of the Golden Dragon King bloodline. His Golden Dragon 9 moves had really continued to improve, and he would still need to study and create the final techniques in order to create an ability that truly belonged to himself. He won. A faint smile emerged on Ji Yuena's face. She was in a good mood because he had truly become more powerful. Moreover, the speed of his improvement was even faster than she had imagined. She should be preparing to return now, for he would come looking for her after participating in the final round of the competition. Your Excellency. A deep voice suddenly spoke up. Ji Yuena frowned. Why are you here? A black silhouette appeared near her without a sound. Everything else in the surrounding area turned dark as if all the light was being absorbed. Your Excellency, the champion of the Star Do Battle Network is him, right? Are you still indecisive about him? You should be able to see that he is growing very fast. If this continues, he's going to be very troublesome for us in the future. After all, he is capable of affecting you. Ji Yuenas glared. There's no need for you to teach me how to deal with him. I'm sorry, Your Excellency. I only wish to remind you to do it as soon as possible for the thousands of our deceased comrades, for the continued multiplication of our lineage in the future, and to become the master of the continent once again. Ji Yuena's gaze turned cold for a moment. Understood. Now, go. The black silhouette heaved a sigh softly. Yes. Light was restored to the place once again. Ji Yuena's good mood was ruined. She frowned deeply and did not speak anymore for a long while. Her Excellency has yet to make up her mind still? I think that the person should be in the west. Her Excellency came back from the west earlier. The judgment made from spatial fluctuation is unmistakable. Xiongjian, you go. Sure. It had already been a full day when Tang Wulin awakened from his meditation. When he was fully awake, the first sound that he heard was his strong heartbeat. Even though the increase in his cultivation base he had during the competition could not be brought out of the Star Do Battle Network, the sensation of the battle could still be felt in the outside world. Tang Wulin could vaguely feel his dragon core producing something new. It was as if his heartbeat sounded somewhat similar to his senior disciple brother's. It seemed like his dragon core's power could still be compressed to a certain level. He glanced at the time as his expression stiffened. The finals of the Soul Master battles and those of the Mecha battles were only a day apart. That was because even the organizer of the Federation had not expected that it would be the same person participating in both finals. In other words, Tang Wulin's final mecha battle was about to start. The opponent who he was about to face was undoubtedly even more powerful than the Bubble King. He stood up and flexed his limbs. He sensed that he was at his peak physical condition, So he turned around and walked toward his Star Do cabin. The final battle of this year's Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge was at long last about to begin. The final battle. When the title was displayed, the attention of the entire Federation was focused on the screen nearest to them. The final battle was a mecha battle. A mecha battle was even more exciting than the Soul Master battle for the masses. Even an ordinary person could pilot a mecha. As long as one's body was cultivated to a certain level and fulfilled a specific amount of spiritual power, one could apply to the Mecha Academy. At long last, the final mecha battle was about to take place today. They wanted to see the extent of the most powerful mecha masters. The Spear King, whom no one took notice of when he entered the final 16, had worked his way through all the obstacles to reach the peak one step at a time. In the end, he stood on the stage of the finals. On the other hand, his opponent ranked first in the betting odds. He managed to achieve victory easily in almost all his previous matches. The person could even be described as the legend of the mecha world. His prestige had spread over the entire Mecha Masters world. His status could not be concealed by the Star Do Battle Network. He had the ability to withstand a battle against even a divine-ranked Mecha Master. He was reputed to be the man who would certainly be a divine Mecha Master. He was only 30 years old, but he was already a rank 9 Mecha Maker. He was also the youngest Mecha Maker in the history of the whole Federation. Moreover, he had managed to make a divine mecha for the others successfully and was known as the Hand of God. He was truly gifted in operating the mecha. He could transform any type of mecha to possess the ability to control heaven and earth with his pair of hands. Even his name was peculiar. It would leave a profound impression on others and caused him to be an object of public denunciation when he younger. Yet, that very name was known over the entire continent. His name was WangKulou, otherwise known as the Skeleton King. In this year's competition, he took on the title of the Skeleton God. His martial soul was precisely his own skeleton. He was the Skeleton God, WangKulou. The man was ranked first for the betting odds of the mecha battle. As compared to him, the name of the Spear King appeared insignificant. In fact, the Spear King had narrowly escaped defeat in the previous rounds of the competition. Nonetheless, there were legendary tales of the Spear King. The story was that the Spear King and the Golden Dragon King, who had just become the champion of the Soul Master battle earlier, was one and the same person. During the final battle between the Golden Dragon King and the Strength King, the Golden Dragon King had summoned an enormous spirit soul of the Overlord Dragon which was identical to the Spear King's. Were they truly the same person? If so, then the Golden Dragon King, which was so powerful in the individual Soul Master battle, would certainly exert a massive amplification on his mecha. Hence, it would be difficult to judge the competition. If it was indeed the case, then this battle would undoubtedly be a battle between the most powerful Soul Master using his mecha and the most powerful Mecha Master. Within a day, news of the Spear King and the Skeleton King had already spread throughout the whole Federation that was eagerly anticipating the competition which was about to begin. The Skeleton God, WangKulou. More precisely, it should be the Skeleton King, WangKulou. Tang Wulin sat in the waiting room quietly, as he recalled from memory everything that was related to WangKulou. WangKulou's martial soul was definitely not just his skeleton, for he was the Skeleton King. The use of one's skeleton as one's martial soul was actually cultivation of the body. However, Tang Wulin inquired from his teacher and found that WangKulou did not belong to the body sect. In fact, he was from a mysterious clan. He was a rank 9 Mecha Maker and also a divine Mecha Maker. In the Federation, there were more top-level experts of other professions than blacksmiths. There were only 13 rank 9 Mecha Makers in the entire Federation. Moreover, it was not easy for them to make a divine mecha. The difficulty level in making a divine mecha for others exceeded the difficulty of making it for oneself. Furthermore, he was only 33 years old. He should have already been a divine mecha master if not for his body's lack of resilience. There was no doubt that the battle with WangKulou would not be any easier for Tang Wulin than fighting his senior disciple brother. The ambience of the competition was more lively than imagined. The audience seemed to have completely forgotten about the tragedy from before. Tang Wulin had yet to walk out from the passage when he heard the cheering outside, which was as loud as seismic waves. Such cheering similarly echoed through the Blood God army. One had lost count of the number of people cheering Tang Wulin on. They knew that the Spear King and the Golden Dragon King were one and the same. In the abyssal passage, ding! A soft shattering sound was heard in the deepest end of the abyssal passage that even the most sensitive detector could not detect it. A tiny fissure began to appear on the core at the deepest end. A faint radiance became illuminated at the passage seal. However, the radiance vanished as soon as it flashed once. Black mist as fine as wisps of silk crept along the fissure silently. It was extremely thin that it did not even trigger the seal. The black airflow appeared in the form of a needle. While it moved gracefully, there were warped radiances that were shimmering in its surroundings. The black airflow began to spin. It spun as if it was spiraling up an invisible hand. The invisible hand pulled gently and conjured a silhouette on the outside of the seal which belonged to the Blood God army. The silhouette pulled the thread formed from the black airflow to the outside swiftly before it flew toward the area further away from the seal. Boom, boom, boom. The mecha walked into the arena with great strides which created the deafening booms. The gazes of the audience were focused on these mechas which were stepping into the competition arena now. Tang Wulin was piloting a close combat mecha, while his weapon was a spear. Similarly, the mecha that walked out from the opposite side was a close combat mecha as well. Its weapon was a saber shield. A saber and a shield. It appeared that these mechas were not that different, for both were standard models. The cheering was so loud it could shatter the ceiling when both the mechas walked out. Skeleton God, Skeleton God, Skeleton God. As compared to the Soul Master battle, the cheering was biased as almost everyone chanted the Skeleton God's name aloud. On the other hand, the cheers for the Spear King Tang Wulin were barely audible. Tang Wulin's expression remained unchanged. He had seen the Skeleton God's battle recording, so he understood why this person was so popular. The Skeleton God's battle technique was dazzling and had marvelous moves that attracted everyone. The spear in Tang Wulin's hand was pointed diagonally to the ground. He operated the mecha into holding the midshaft of the spear as he gazed at the opponent in the distance. The Skeleton King was also gazing at him. It was as if there was an invisible link that connected them together. The Skeleton God's skill in operating the mecha far exceeded Tang Wulin's, as it was his profession. The Skeleton God was most skilled in using grand combo attacks in his battles. The perfect combination of speed and strength made him invincible. He was reputed to be able to perform the seemingly impossible skills which a human could not perform on a mecha. Hence, he had betting odds that were largely in his favor. The Federal Star-Do Battle Network challenged Mecha Battle. The final competition, get ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. The announcement was brief, which was the Star-Do Battle Network's usual style. Soon after the announcement was made, Tang Wulin moved almost simultaneously with the Skeleton God. Both of them moved with great strides as they charged toward each other. One could already see the disparity between both parties at the beginning. Both were close combat mechas but were equipped with different weapons. Relatively speaking, the Skeleton God's weapon was slightly heavier than Tang Wulin's. Yet, the Skeleton God was faster than Tang Wulin by half a second at the beginning despite not using his propeller. It showed the blatant disparity between their mecha operating skills. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.